Hey everybody, it's Sarah here. I am going to talk to you today about some more advanced mountaineering training goals. I know on these videos and in the group we often talk about getting started, and that's because many people decide to climb a mountain in order to get into shape. It's a great goal to shoot for. If you are trying to make a big life change, having that big goal in front of you can really help. However, there are lots of you who are somewhat experienced, who have climbed other mountains, or who are coming into this from other sports or are just in really great shape that are wondering what you can do to really, be the best you can be in your workouts and get the most out of your training time. I think a lot of you are very curious to see how far you can really go. So I thought I'd talk about that a little bit today, and this did come from a member question. What I'm going to try to do over the next couple of weeks is I've been noticing these member questions when you sign up for the group I get are amazing. And I'm like, I could write you a really quick message to answer that, or maybe I could make a video to really try to answer it in a bit more detail and give you some real valuable tips that you can use. So I am going to start doing that. And then this question today came from Stacy from our group, and she basically talked about being already in pretty good shape, but wanting to climb Mount Rainier and wanting to, get some ideas of what she can really do to start training. So first of all, a couple of words on training plans, because I think a lot of you come to this group because you're working on one of my training plans, either one that you found on the blog, one of the freebies, or one that you purchased. And I think some of the stuff I'm going to say might sound a bit contradictory, based on the fact that I am a coach who writes training plans. And let me just say a few words about that before we dive in. So I think training plans are really important. It is so important to go into training with a plan, with a roadmap, knowing which workouts are the most important. And that's the way that you really structure your time, prioritize, motivate yourself. And it also takes away the guesswork of just, what do I do today? I know if you're like me, you probably have been training for something and then just fallen into this spin cycle of, what do I do today? Do I run intervals? Do I run my long run? Do I run my long run tomorrow? Is there enough time between my lifting sessions? So having that roadmap of what to do each day, I think, is really important. However, I never want you to feel that is set in stone or something that you absolutely must follow to be successful. Here's a big truth, and take this on board, even if it causes you a bit of anxiety. The best training in the world for anything you are training for is individualized, and that means that it's taking into account your schedule, the fact that you have 2 kids that you need to run to school in the morning, the fact that you work 60 hours a week at your job. These are things that I don't know about you, the person who's using the training plan, when I'm writing it. And these are things that I think it's really good to sit down each week, take the training plan and look at it and think about your life, think about your fitness, think about where you are, and you might change a few things in that plan. And I think that's totally not only good to do, but crucial to do for your success. So if you're advanced at working out, you're going to change the training plan. Some of the things you may not change, but there may be some aspects that you do change. So what should you think about changing? Let me go over 4 things to really think about, and I'm going to do these in order of priority. So the first one's the most important. If you feel like you've got a handle on that one and you're doing really well, think about changing the second one. I would advise changing one at a time. Don't go too crazy changing things, then it's hard to see what's working. So number 1, I really want you to think about your aerobic base. What is that? So base is the amount, the volume of work that you are doing every week. So for example, my training plans start you at about 5 hours and build you up to about 11 hours. And if you are already, when you come into this training plan, running more than 5 hours, then you may be able to take your base building higher. So what should you be shooting for? So for any endurance event, which is an event over 3 hours, you probably want to have a base of at least 10 hours. 10 to 12 hours is pretty ideal for a busy working person. You can take it higher if you want to. I wouldn't go super crazy with it because at some point you start running into diminishing returns, and it is also obviously the most time consuming of your workouts. So I would take your base up to maybe 15 hours. What should you be doing during this time? 70 to 80% of your workouts should be moderate steady state. So what is that? That is running at or exercising, doing cardio. You could be running, you could be hiking, some kind of weight-bearing exercise that is at conversational pace. You're not gasping, you're not snorting through your nose. If you have a friend with you, you can turn and speak with them, and you might take a breath, like a sharp breath every once in a while, but you can talk to them and have a conversation without feeling like you want to stop. If you want to be really crazy, you can talk to yourself to test it. In trainer school, they taught us to say the Pledge of Allegiance 2 times, and I don't know, that looks insane when you're at the park, but that's a good way to test your intensity. And on a scale of 1 to 10, you can also do intensity of 3 to 4, with 10 being all out effort. So that's your base. 10 to 12 hours for sure. You can go as high as 15. You could go higher. I think 15 is probably enough for doing something like Mount Rainier. 70 to 80% of the time doing long, slow distance workouts at conversational pace, and those must be weight bearing, could be hiking, could be running, could be climbing stairs on the treadmill. But, you know, as close to hiking as possible. Another thing I want you to think about with your base is specificity. So that means getting as close to your goal workout as you can. So if you're going to be climbing Mount Rainier, you probably want to be hiking. You want to think about, you know, what's that going to involve? I'm going to climb a lot of elevation. It's going to be on fairly steep snow, and you may not have snow where you're at that you can climb, and you may not have like big, huge hills that you can climb, but maybe there's a hill by you that you can walk up and down. And you might think, for specificity for Mount Rainier, I'm going to be carrying a heavy backpack, so I'm going to put on a heavy backpack while I do these cardio workouts. Not all of your cardio workouts have to be super specific, but the more, I would try to get at least like one long specific workout in a week, and also try to, as much as you can, do specific workouts. So and don't freak out if sometimes you have to go to the gym and jump on the treadmill. That's okay too, but the more you can get outside and really experience what it's going to be like, that's going to benefit you. So that's your aerobic base. That is your number 1 priority. Number 2 priority, it depends. This one depends a little bit. If you're doing a hike like Mount Rainier, where you're going to be carrying a very heavy pack, very heavy, I mean like 40 to 50 pounds, I guess that's not that heavy, but maybe heavier than you're normally used to, I would focus on strength next. If you're going to be doing a mountaineering trip where you're just going out with a day pack, and maybe, you know, maybe it's a little bit of extra weight, but not a whole lot different than what you normally carry, put strength last to make it number 4. But let's talk about strength. Let's assume you're doing something where you're carrying a heavy pack, and we'll make this number 2. So if that's the case, I want you to think about doing what's called a max strength phase or period to your workouts. And what that's going to look like is taking maybe like 4 to 8 weeks of doing some when you're doing your weightlifting twice a week, you're actually going to lift really heavy weights. And what that'll look like is you're probably going to do about 4 to 5 reps per set, 4 to 6 sets, and working out your entire body. It's okay if you want to focus on lower body and core, but make sure you get some good upper body work in as well. And what's that going to do? So having a max strength phase is going to help you recruit new muscle fibers, and it's going to increase your overall strength. So how's that going to help you? It's really going to help you when you're walking up steep hills, carrying a heavy pack. And also you need your core, you need your body to help you balance, to help you maneuver around in space with that heavy thing on your back. So having strong legs is important, having a strong core is important. And I think it always in mountaineering, having a strong upper body is important as well, even though that's probably your lowest priority, because what if someone fell in a crevasse and you were the person that had to hold the fallen climber with your ice axe for, 15 minutes while someone is setting up an anchor in order to haul them out? So, and what if you fell in the crevasse and you had to actually set up an ascending system that takes, a fair amount of upper body strength if you've ever practiced it. So don't neglect the upper body, but give yourself a nice full body max strength period. You only need to do it 4 to 8 weeks. 8 weeks is ideal. 4 weeks, if you're crunched for time, will even help a lot, and you'll be surprised. Your body will actually use more muscle fibers and you will feel a lot stronger, and it feels pretty amazing. So that's the max strength. Number 3 thing I would focus on would be lactate threshold training. So what is that? You just went like, what, the French toast? So your lactate threshold is basically the intensity where your body shifts from burning all kinds of things to mostly burning sugar, because it's having to work pretty hard. It's working faster than your aerobic metabolism system, which is your primary metabolism, can function. So what that usually looks like when you're working out is doing either a tempo run, like a moderate paced run, or some people prefer to do that as intervals. Intervals are a lot of fun and somewhat less painful. I definitely suggest a combination of both, actually. And what do they look like? Well, first of all, I think it's important to kind of figure out where your lactate threshold is. And it's the intensity basically that you can sustain for about 20 minutes. So one easy way to test it, go out and run for 20 minutes and wear your heart rate monitor and check either your average heart rate or your average pace or your distance. And those will give you benchmarks to shoot for to help you understand where your lactate threshold is. Actually, I would do 20 minutes and multiply it by 0.95, because a lot of times you'll run a little bit faster when you're doing a test. So 0.95 of the pace you can sustain for 20 minutes. You can measure in pace and heart rates. Some people measure in distance. That is great. And then once you know that, so you want to run at you want to do your lactate threshold workouts at or just below your lactate threshold. So for example, we say if you're using heart rate, say your lactate threshold is 160, you're gonna work out and do your intervals or your tempo runs with a heart rate between 150 and 160. So within 10 beats is usually pretty good for most people. And I want you to, for your benchmark, try to work up to about 40 minutes total at lactate threshold intensity once a week. So that might look like a 40-minute tempo run if you're really good. And some people like to break it into intervals. Between 5 and 20 minutes makes a great interval. You don't need a lot of rest between them. They're not super intense. You could do, I'm trying to think of the last lactate threshold. I'm kind of in the moderate on this right now. So I think I did 3 8-minute lactate threshold intervals, and then I had maybe a 2-minute rest in between them. So, and then you might even, one of my favorites is to do 2 20-minute ones and then have a 5-minute rest in between them. So it's almost a tempo run, but you get a little break in the middle. So lactate threshold intervals, what do? They actually help you get faster, help improve your endurance, and they improve your comfort with pain. Basically, when you're doing all this work to climb up, let's say Mount Rainier, and your muscles are working and you're panting because you're in a hard, steep section, your body's producing acid and it's getting in your blood. That's why you're breathing and exhaling harder than normal. And doing lactate threshold workouts will actually increase not only the heart rate and intensity where that starts to happen, it'll actually make you a lot more comfortable with it. So you're like, I'm panting, but it's it's not as painful as it might have been a few months ago, and I can deal with it and I can keep going. So that's a great feeling when that starts to happen. Number 4, VO2 Max. A lot of people that follow like cycling and Lance Armstrong are like, I want my VO2 Max to be amazing. And you know, having a great VO2 Max is good. It definitely is an indicator of overall endurance performance. So for mountaineering, it's good to have an awesome VO2 Max. To some degree, it also helps with working in the thin air. If you are going someplace where you're going to be climbing really high, higher than you normally would be or normally would exercise, I think VO2 Max does give you some benefits. It helps your body move oxygen more effectively. Basically, that's the definition of it. How much oxygen can you actually use when you're working as hard as you possibly can? So if you're very efficient with oxygen and there's not very much oxygen in the air, you're still getting more of it to your muscles, and you can work a little bit harder. The reason it's number 4 is that it just really, overall, isn't like, there aren't too many situations in mountaineering, unless you're running from a serac fall or something like that, or just working really hard to climb out of a crevasse. It's probably pretty minimal that you're going to be working at maximal intensity. You're probably going to want to go really slow and try to, you know, not work too much in your anaerobic zone. So, you know, we do train VO2 Max. It has a lot of benefits, but it is the last priority for general mountaineering. There's some specific kinds of things where you might want to emphasize this more, but yeah, for our purposes, we're going to make this the last one, but still important, still a great thing to work at. I definitely recommend, once you have all the other pieces in place, to do a VO2 Max interval workout once a week. What that looks like, basically it's the same thing as a high intensity interval training. So you do very short intervals. They're 30 seconds to 3 minutes, and they're very, very intense. It's 8 to 9 on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being, so 10 is all out effort. So 8 to 9, you're almost there. You're basically working at the highest pace that you can sustain and still finish your interval workout. So some examples of what it might look like for a beginner. I like, when I'm first starting out, if I haven't done them for a while, I usually do 7 1-minute intervals with a 1-minute rest, and I gradually work up, and I would like you to work up to about 15 minutes total of VO2 Max work, and you don't do that all at once. You don't go longer than 3 minutes, but maybe you do 5 3-minute intervals, and you have like the 3-minute rest in between them, so you can recover a little bit, but not too much. You still want to have a little bit of acid and discomfort inside you when you do the next one, just because that will really help you get used to that feeling. Like we said, you kind of gotta get used to working with some acid in your muscles and your blood, and get comfortable with that. And you will if you do your interval work every week and do it correctly, and don't overdo it. I think VO2 Max intervals are the ones that people tend to kill themselves on. You run 1 or 2 and you're like, I had 5 planned, but now I'm gonna die. Don't do that. Start slowly. You can always run harder towards the end. Assume you will suddenly start to feel much worse about halfway through, so start pretty easy. And then if you are feeling great, then feel free to step up the pace. If your last one can be your hardest one, that's great. Good thing to shoot for. So there you have it. 4 things to shoot for. First, your first priority, building up your aerobic base. Lots of long, slow distance training, as many 10 to 12 hours, a little bit more maybe if you're feeling really motivated. Number 2, if you're gonna carry a pack, definitely do a max strength phase. Number 3, lactate threshold work, really important. And number 4, once you got all the other pieces in place, definitely add a once a week VO2 Max high intensity interval training workout. I need to think of a shorter way to say that, but yeah, the high intensity interval workout will definitely help you out. So I hope that was helpful for those of you who are, you know, starting your training in a bit of a more advanced place, or if you are thinking you might be there someday, bookmark this video for later. If you're wondering, if your head is spinning as I'm talking talking about this and you're wondering how to put it all together, don't worry too much. This is pretty advanced stuff, so if it sounds pretty crazy to you to be doing all this, then that's okay if you're not there yet. If you are kind of in that place where you are new to mountaineering training, maybe you're, already working out but not super fit and wondering how to put a mountaineering program together, I'm gonna drop a link below to my Mount Rainier training plan, and this link is going to get you the first 4 weeks free. If you really like it, it's a 21-week program overall. Try the first 4 weeks. If they're working for you, you can also upgrade to the full program and keep going. It's great not just for Mount Rainier, but for pretty much any 2 to 4 day mountaineering trip where you're going to be, possibly carrying a big pack on your back. You can also adapt it for 1 day trips. So if you're going to be hiking from a hut, hiking at high altitude, it works great for all of that. And I think and like I said, you will adapt it. I really hope you adapt it and put, take all your needs and where you're at into account. But it's nice to have a roadmap to know, what you should be doing in what order. And every day you will have a plan and not have to sit there and think about what am I going to do to train today, which is a great way to waste time and create anxiety and possibly not get the results you want. So after I shut off the video, I will drop the link down there. And thank you for watching, guys. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. I love our group. Welcome to all the new people that we have this week. I think we have like 15 new people, which is blows my mind. That's amazing to me, and I think it's so great that there's so many people interested in backpacking and mountaineering fitness. So good on you. Enjoy your training, and I will be back soon with another question to answer. Take care.